Imagine a misty fjord in 9th-century Norway, where a small village nestles against towering cliffs. The air smells of salt and pine, and the longhouse glows with the flicker of a hearth fire. Here, the Vikings live by rules that bind them to each other and the harsh world around them. Their laws aren't just about crime and punishment. They're about maintaining balance, honoring ancestors, and surviving the long winters. One of the strangest laws governed the concept of holmgang, a legal duel to settle disputes. Picture two men, maybe neighbors arguing over a stolen cow or an insult to one's family honor. Instead of endless feuding, the law allowed them to meet on a small island or a marked-off square, armed with swords or axes. The rules were strict. Each man got 3 shields, and if one broke all 3, he had to fight defenseless. If he fled, he'd be branded an outlaw, cast out from society. The winner was deemed right in the eyes of the gods, and the matter was settled. No further grudges allowed. It sounds brutal, but this law kept blood feuds from tearing villages apart. Imagine the tension as the crowd watched, the clash of iron echoing across the water, the dispute ending with one swing. Then there was the law of hospitality, which might seem odd to us now. If a traveler knocked on a Viking's door, the host was legally bound to offer food, shelter, and safety for 3 days. Refusing could bring shame or even a fine. Picture a weary wanderer, soaked from a storm, stepping into a warm longhouse. The host, though wary, sets out bread, fish, and meat, knowing the gods are watching. But the guest had rules too. Overstay those 3 days, and you risked being labeled a thief or worse. This law ensured trust in a world where travel was dangerous, binding strangers together under an unspoken pact. Viking laws around marriage were equally curious. Women had surprising rights for the time. They could divorce their husbands for reasons like neglect or even bad hygiene. Imagine a woman named Astrid standing before the local assembly, declaring her husband's laziness intolerable. She'd state her case, and if the elders agreed, she could walk away with her dowry and freedom. But there was a catch. Men could take multiple wives or concubines, as long as they could support them. This created complex households where jealousy simmered, yet the law held firm to keep order. Astrid might leave her husband, but she'd need to navigate the social web carefully to avoid losing her status. Crime and punishment could be downright bizarre. Theft, for instance, wasn't always punished by death or imprisonment. Instead, a thief might face scogging, being declared an outlaw and banished to the wilderness. Picture a young man caught stealing silver, now forced to flee into the forest, shunned by all. He'd survive only if he was cunning enough to avoid starvation or vengeful kin. For lesser crimes, fines called wurgild were common. If someone injured another, they'd pay a price based on the victim's status. A freeman's broken arm might cost a few silver coins, while harming a chieftain could bankrupt you. This system turned justice into a transaction, keeping peace through coin rather than blood. One of the oddest laws involved the treatment of insults. Vikings took words seriously. Calling someone a coward or mocking their honor could spark a legal case. Imagine a boisterous feast where one man, deep in his mead, calls another womanly for refusing a challenge. The insulted could drag the offender to the thing, the local assembly, to demand compensation or a public apology. Words were weapons, and the law protected reputations, as fiercely as it did lives. Even death had its legal quirks. Vikings believed in the Einherjar, warriors chosen by Odin to fight in Valhalla. But dying in a dishonorable way, like being executed for cowardice, could bar you from this afterlife. Laws encouraged bravery, sometimes to a fault. A warrior who fled battle might face not just shame but legal penalties, like losing his land or status. Picture a young Viking, trembling before his first raid, knowing that running could cost him everything: his home, his name, his place among the gods. These laws, strange as they seem, wove the Vikings' world together. They balanced individual freedom with collective survival, ensuring that disputes didn't spiral into chaos and that trust held firm in a rugged land. As the fire in the longhouse dims and the village sleeps under a blanket of stars, these rules linger in the air, guiding the living and honoring the dead. The village of Hrafnfell stirs as dawn creeps over the mountains. In the heart of the settlement, a grassy clearing serves as the Thingstead, where freemen gather to settle disputes, pass judgments, and uphold the laws that bind their community. The Thing is the heartbeat of Viking society, a place where voices rise like the wind, and justice is shaped by words as much as swords. Today, the air buzzes with tension. A dispute has arisen, and the laws, some stranger than others, will decide the outcome. One of the most curious laws governs the Alething, the great regional assembly held once a year. Every free man, from farmers to jarls, is required to attend, unless sickness or the sea keeps them away. Imagine Sven, a young farmer with a weathered face, trudging miles through mud and forest to reach the Alething. He carries no weapons, another odd rule, as weapons are banned at the Thing to prevent bloodshed. If Sven misses the gathering without good cause, he risks a fine or even temporary outlawry, a reminder that community is law and absence is betrayal. At the Alething, laws are recited by the law speaker, a man chosen for his memory, who stands on a rock and chants the ancient codes so none forget. Picture the crowd, bundled in furs, listening to tales of wargild prices and the penalties for stealing a neighbor's horse. It's a ritual as old as the fjords, tying the present to the past. Today's dispute involves a strange law about land and boundaries. A man named Bjorn accuses his neighbor, Leif, of moving a boundary stone to claim extra grazing land for his sheep. In Viking law, land is sacred, tied to family honor and survival. Moving a stone is no small crime. It's a theft of legacy. The law demands proof, but here's where it gets odd. If no witnesses confirm the act, Bjorn can challenge Leif to an oath-taking. Leif must swear his innocence before the gods, holding a sacred ring coated in ox blood. If he stammers or refuses, the Thing might rule against him. But Leif, a cunning man, knows another quirk of the law. He can call upon oath helpers, kin or friends who swear to his character, bolstering his claim. Imagine the tension as Leif's brother steps forward, gripping the ring, his voice steady, but his eyes darting. The gods, the Vikings believe, will punish false oaths with misfortune, so every word carries weight. Viking laws around animals are equally peculiar. Livestock are wealth, and harming another's is a grave offense. If a man's dog kills a neighbor's sheep, the owner must pay wargild for the animal, just as he would for a human injury. Picture a farmer, Ingrid, standing before the Thing, her face flushed as she demands justice for her prize due, torn apart by a rival's hound. The law allows her to claim the dog's hide or a fine, but there's a twist. If the dog's owner swears it was an accident and offers a new sheep, the matter might end there. This rule, strange to us, reflects the Viking obsession with balance. Every loss must be repaid, whether in coin, kind, or blood. Another odd law governs the treatment of shipwrecks, a common sight along these stormy coasts. If a ship washes ashore, the wreckage belongs to the landowner, but only if no survivor claims it. Imagine a gale-torn night, waves crashing against the cliffs, and a merchant vessel splintering on the rocks. The local farmer, Eric, watches from the shore, knowing the law. If he finds goods but no living soul, the cargo is his. But if even one sailor clings to life, the law of hospitality kicks in. Eric must shelter the survivor, feed him, and help him recover. Failure to do so could see Eric fined or shunned. Picture him wading into the surf, torn between greed for the scattered barrels and fear of the gods' judgment. This law blends mercy with pragmatism, ensuring aid for the living while rewarding those who brave the sea's wrath. The Vikings' approach to slavery, or thraldom, reveals another layer of their legal world. Thralls, often captives from raids or debtors, had few rights, but the law offered strange paths to freedom. A thrall could buy their liberty if they earned enough, perhaps by crafting goods or serving loyally. Imagine a woman named Thora, taken from a distant land, now working tirelessly in a chieftain's household. The law allows her master to free her at the Thing, a public act that restores her status as a free woman. But here's the oddity. If Thora's master dies without heirs, she might inherit a portion of his wealth, a rare chance to rise from nothing. This law, though harsh in practice, dangles hope before the enslaved, tying their fate to the whims of their captors and the gods. Even children weren't spared the law's quirks. Viking society valued strong heirs, but a father could legally expose a newborn, leave in the wild, if it was sickly or unwanted. Picture a young mother, Freya, weeping as her husband carries their frail infant to the forest's edge. The law allows this, but only before the child is named or sprinkled with water in a pagan rite. Once named, the child is part of the clan, and killing it becomes murder. This grim rule, rooted in survival, ensured only the strong endured the harsh winters, yet it haunts Freya's dreams as she prays to Freya for her child's soul. As the Thing draws to a close, another strange law comes to light: the right of vengeance. If a man is killed, his kin can seek wergild or blood. But the law sets limits. Vengeance must be taken within a year, and only against the killer, not his family. Imagine Olaf, a young warrior whose brother was slain in a drunken brawl. The Thing offers him a choice: accept silver or hunt the killer. Olaf chooses blood, but the law demands he announce his intent publicly, giving the killer a chance to flee or prepare. This rule, odd to us, channels rage into order, preventing endless feuds that could shatter the village. As the sun dips below the fjord, the Thing disbands, and the villagers return to their hearths. The laws, strange and unyielding, hold Hrafnfell together, a tapestry of honor, obligation, and survival. They govern duels and oaths, sheep and ships, thralls and children, weaving a world where every act has consequence. The fire in the longhouse crackles, its embers glowing like the laws themselves, ancient, flickering, eternal. The Thingstead at Hrafnfell is quiet now, the echoes of yesterday's assembly fading like ripples on the water. But the laws linger, shaping every choice, every glance, every whispered word in the longhouse. Today, a new matter stirs the village, a strange case tied to one of the oddest Viking laws, the saga of the dead. In Viking society, the dead are never truly gone. They watch from the mounds, their spirits bound to the living through ritual and law. And when those rituals are broken, the consequences ripple like a storm. Picture Einar, a grizzled fisherman with hands calloused from years hauling nets. His father, a respected warrior, died last winter, buried with his sword and a slaughtered horse to carry him to Valhalla. Viking law demands that a grave be treated with reverence. No one may disturb it, not even to graze cattle atop the mound. But Einar's neighbor, Gudrun, a sharp-tongued widow, has let her goats wander onto the burial site, trampling the earth and scattering the stones Einar placed to honor his father. To us, this might seem a small slight, but in Viking law, it's a grave offense, a disrespect to the dead that risks angering the spirits. Einar, furious, drags Gudrun before the thing. The law here is strange and steeped in the supernatural. If a grave is disturbed, the offender must make amends, offer a sacrifice, pay a fine, or face exile. As Einar stands before the law speaker, his voice trembles with rage, recounting how Gudrun's goats uprooted the sacred earth. Gudrun, defiant, claims ignorance, but the law offers her no easy escape. The thing rules she must slaughter one of her prized goats and offer it to the gods at the grave, sprinkling its blood to appease Einar's father's spirit. Imagine the scene. Gudrun, grim-faced, leading her bleeding goat to the mound under the watchful eyes of the village. The air grows heavy as the blood soaks the earth, a reminder that Viking law binds the living to the dead, the present to the past. Another peculiar law governs the sea, the lifeblood of Viking life. Ships are more than wood and sail. They're the key to trade, raids, and survival. The law of strandhog, the right to salvage, has sparked a new dispute in Hrafnfell. A merchant ship, caught in a squall, ran aground on the shore of Torvald's land. Torvald, a burly farmer with ambitions beyond his fields, claims the scattered cargo, barrels of mead, furs, and amber beads, as his own. But the law is tricky. Strandhog grants him the goods only if no survivor claims them. A lone sailor, half-drowned and shivering, crawls from the wreckage, demanding his cargo back. Torvald, citing the law of hospitality, takes the man into his home, offering bread and a fire. But here's the strange twist. The law allows Torvald to demand a guest fee for his hospitality, a portion of the sailor's goods as payment for shelter. Picture Torvald, grinning slyly as he hands the sailor a bowl of stew, knowing the man's gratitude will cost him a share of his wealth. The law balances generosity with cunning, ensuring no act of kindness goes unrewarded. In Hrafnfell, the laws around women continue to surprise. While Viking women like Astrid, the weaver, have rights rare for their time, divorce, property, inheritance, their lives are still bound by odd customs. Take the law of Mundr, the bride price paid by a groom to his wife's family. This isn't just a transaction. It's a legal contract that protects the bride. If her husband mistreats her, she can reclaim her Mundr and leave. Imagine Astrid, now remarried to a kind but poor fisherman named Harold. When Harold's debts mount, he considers selling Astrid's dowry land to settle them. But the law forbids it without her consent, a strange power for a woman in a warrior's world. Astrid stands firm, her voice steady as she reminds Harold of her rights at the thing. The elders nod, and Harold backs down, his pride stung but the law upheld. This rule, though rooted in patriarchy, gives women like Astrid a shield against misfortune, a foothold in a world of axes and oaths. The law of fostering adds another layer of strangeness. Viking families often sent their children to live with other households, forging alliances or settling debts. Picture young Sigrid, a girl of 10 with braided hair and bright eyes, sent to live with a neighboring chieftain's family. The law treats her as a daughter of both households, binding them in trust. But here's the oddity. If Sigrid's foster family mistreats her, her birth parents can demand wergild, as if she were injured or killed. This law turns children into bridges between clans, their safety a legal bond stronger than blood. As Sigrid learns to weave and sing in her new home, she carries the weight of this alliance, her laughter a thread in the village's fragile peace. Even the gods themselves fall under Viking law. Blasphemy, mocking Odin, Thor, or Freya, carries a penalty, for the gods are the ultimate arbiters of justice. Imagine a drunken poet, skald, boasting at a feast that Thor's hammer is no match for his wit. The room falls silent, faces pale. The law allows the thing to fine skald or demand a public offering to appease the thunder god. Skald, sobered by morning, carves a wooden hammer and lays it at Thor's shrine, muttering prayers under the watchful eyes of the village. This law, strange to us, reflects the Vikings' belief that words could shake the heavens and only ritual could mend the breach. As night falls over Hrafnfell, the laws weave their magic. They govern graves and ships, brides and children, gods and poets, each rule a thread in the tapestry of Viking life. The longhouse glows, its hearth a beacon in the dark. The fjord whispers, carrying tales of honor and justice to the stars. The laws, though strange, hold the village together, a delicate balance between chaos and order, life and death. In Hrafnfell, the longhouse of Jarl Ragna hums with the low murmur of voices as the village prepares for the blot, a sacred offering to the gods for a bountiful harvest. The laws governing such rituals are strict, steeped in reverence for the divine, and any misstep could bring misfortune. Tonight's blot is for Freyr, god of fertility and prosperity, and the village must follow the ancient rules to ensure his favor. The law demands a flawless animal, a boar or goat, free of blemish, be sacrificed, its blood sprinkled on the altar and its meat shared in a communal feast. To offer a sickly beast or to skip the ritual altogether risks famine or plague, for the Vikings believe the gods are as bound by law as the living. Picture the scene, the village gathered around a stone altar in the clearing, torches flickering, as the goatee, the priest, chants prayers, his knife gleaming under the starlight. The boar's blood flows, and the law is upheld, tying Hrafnfell to the divine order. But not all matters in Hrafnfell are so solemn. A new dispute has arisen, one tied to a peculiar law about Hrepr, the communal land shared by the village. Every freeman has a right to graze livestock or cut timber on the Hrepr, but the law sets strict limits to prevent overuse. Imagine Olaf, a young herder, accused by his neighbor Thora of letting his cattle graze beyond his allotted share, trampling her barley field in the process. The thing convenes once more, the grassy Thingstead alive with murmurs. Thora, her voice sharp as a blade, demands wergild for her ruined crops. Olaf, red-faced, insists his cattle strayed by accident, but the law is unforgiving. Overuse of the hrupper carries a fine, and damaging another's land doubles the penalty. The law speaker recites the code, his voice steady as he lists the price: 3 silver coins for the crops, plus a sheep for the hrupper violation. But here's the strange twist. Olaf can avoid the fine by swearing an oath before the thing, backed by 12 oath helpers who vouch for his honesty. Picture Olaf scrambling to gather kin and friends, their hands on the sacred ring, their words a shield against ruin. If even one falters, the gods might judge him false, and the fine will stand. The tension hangs heavy as the oaths are sworn, each voice a thread in the fragile web of trust. Another odd law governs the Vik, the seasonal raids that bring wealth and glory. Viking law permits any free man to join a raid, but he must equip himself, a ship, weapons, and provisions, or risk being labeled a Nightinger, a coward unworthy of respect. Imagine young Kettle, barely 16, dreaming of his first raid across the sea. The law requires him to secure a place on a longship, often by pledging loyalty to a jarl or contributing to the ship's upkeep. But there's a catch. If Kettle returns empty-handed, he owes his jarl a share of the loot he should have won, a debt that could bind him for years. Picture Kettle standing on the shore, watching the dragon-proud ship sail out, his heart torn between fear of failure and the lure of Valhalla's glory. The law pushes him forward, for to stay behind risks shame worse than death. The treatment of outlaws adds another layer of strangeness. Outlawry, skagang for lesser crimes, full outlawry for heinous ones, strips a man of all rights, casting him into the wilds. Picture Bjarni, a hot-headed smith caught stealing silver from the jarl's hoard. The thing declares him a skogarmer, a forest man, banished for 3 years. He may return if he survives, but no one may aid him without sharing his fate. Imagine Bjarni, his hammer abandoned, fleeing into the dark forest, his only companions the wolves and the wind. The law allows his kin to secretly leave food at the forest's edge, but only if no one sees, a strange mercy in a merciless rule. Bjarni's fate hangs on his cunning, for the law assumes the gods will judge him in the wilds, sparing the village the burden of his blood. Even love and courtship fall under Viking law's odd gaze. Betrothals are contracts, sealed with handfesting, a public handshake, and exchange of gifts. But the law allows a woman to refuse a suitor, provided she does so before the handfesting is complete. Picture Freydis, a sharp-eyed maiden, courted by 2 men, Gunnar, a wealthy but arrogant warrior, and Leif, a quiet fisherman. The law grants her father the final say, but Freydis can sway him by proving Gunnar's unworthiness, perhaps his temper or a past broken oath. At the thing, she speaks boldly, citing a law that voids a betrothal if the groom shames her honor. Imagine the crowd's murmurs as Gunnar's face darkens, Leif standing silent but hopeful. The law speaker rules in Freydis' favor, and the betrothal is broken, a rare victory for a woman's will in a world of men. The law of kenning, the use of poetic names, carries its own curious weight. Vikings love their skalds, whose verses weave fame or infamy. But calling a man by a mocking kenning, like Beardless for a warrior who prides himself on his mane, can spark a legal grievance. Imagine Skald Thorfinn, whose sharp tongue earns him enemies. At a feast, he dubs a rival sheep chaser, implying cowardice. The insulted man hauls Thorfinn before the thing, citing a law that protects honor from slander. The penalty? A public apology or a fine in silver. Picture Thorfinn, his wit now a chain, reciting a new verse to praise his rival, the words bitter on his tongue but demanded by law. As dawn breaks over Hrafnfell, the village stirs, its laws a quiet pulse beneath the daily grind. These rules, governing gods, raids, outlaws, and love, bind the people to each other and the land. The fjord glimmers, reflecting the order of a world where every act, from a goat's sacrifice to a poet's jest, carries the weight of law. The longhouse wakes, its hearth rekindled, and life flows on, guided by customs as strange and enduring as the cliffs themselves. In Hrafnfell, the village prepares for the Vetraliger, the winter assembly, a smaller thing held to settle disputes before the snows lock the fjord in ice. The Thingstead, a grassy knoll ringed by weathered stones, buzzes with anticipation. Today's cases will test the strangest of Viking laws, those that balance human ambition with the unseen forces of fate. The law speaker, old Habden with his white beard and steady voice, stands ready to recite the codes, his words a bridge between the living, the dead, and the gods. One peculiar law concerns the Arf, the inheritance that passes from father to son, or sometimes to daughter. Viking law favors the eldest son, but it holds surprises for those further down the line. Picture Astrid, the weaver from our earlier tale, now widowed after her husband Harold's fishing boat vanished in a storm. Harold left no sons, only a daughter, young Sigrid, who weaves beside her mother. The law allows Sigrid to inherit her father's land, but only if no male can claim it. Harold's brother, Thorgrim, a greedy man with a farm of his own, steps forward at the thing, citing an obscure rule. A brother can claim the Arfer if the heir is a child under 15. Sigrid, just 12, risks losing her home. But here's the strange twist. Astrid invokes the Morgengifu, the morning gift Harold gave her upon their marriage, a plot of land legally hers. The law protects this gift above all claims, even Thorgrim's. Picture Astrid, standing tall before the thing, her voice cutting through the murmurs as she recites the law, clutching the deed stone carved with runes. The law speaker nods, and Thorgrim's claim crumbles, leaving Sigrid's inheritance intact. The law, though rigid, bends just enough to shield the vulnerable, a curious blend of tradition and mercy. Another odd law governs the Holmgang ritual, which we've glimpsed before, but its nuances run deeper. Not all duels are fought with swords. Some are settled with words or wits. Imagine Leif, the quiet fisherman, accused by his rival Gunnar of sabotaging his nets. Gunnar demands a Holmgang to settle the matter, but Leif, no warrior, invokes a lesser-known rule, the Ordal, a trial by ordeal. The law allows Leif to prove his innocence by carrying a red-hot iron 9 paces without faltering. If his hands remain unscarred, the gods declare him truthful. Picture the village gathered at the Thingstead, the air thick with tension as Leif grips the glowing metal, his face set in grim determination. He stumbles on the 8th step, but his hands show no burns. The law speaker declares him innocent, and Gunnar, stunned, must pay a fine for false accusation. This strange law, rooted in divine judgment, spares blood while testing courage, a relic of a world where gods walk among men. The law of fostering takes a new turn in Hrafnfell. Beyond alliances, fostering can serve as punishment or redemption. Picture Bjarni, the outlawed smith from our last tale, who survived his 3 years in the wilderness. He returns, gaunt but alive, seeking to reclaim his place. The law allows his reintegration, but only if he fosters a child from a wronged family, proving his loyalty to the community. Bjarni takes in young Eric, son of a man he once cheated. The law binds Bjarni to treat Eric as his own, teaching him the smith's trade and protecting him until manhood. Imagine Bjarni, once a pariah, hammering iron beside Eric, their bond a slow mending of past sins. This rule, strange to us, turns outcasts into kin, weaving broken threads back into the village's fabric. Even the animals of Hrafnfell fall under the law's peculiar gaze. The Fae, livestock, are wealth, and their treatment is strictly regulated. A curious law governs Almenninger, the shared grazing lands beyond the Hrupper. If a man's horse strays and eats another's crops, the owner must pay Wergild or surrender the horse. Picture Thora, the farmer from before, now facing a new grievance. Her neighbor's mare has trampled her herb garden, vital for winter medicines. The law allows Thora to seize the mare until compensation is paid, but there's a twist. If the horse's owner swears it was stolen and strayed, he can reduce the fine. At the thing, the neighbor, Ingvar, produces 2 witnesses who saw a thief cut the mare's tether. The law speaker halves the penalty, and Thora, though frustrated, accepts a single silver coin. This law, blending justice with compromise, keeps peace among neighbors, even when tempers flare. The strangest law of all emerges as the Vetraliger closes. The Disablat, a ritual honoring the Dessert, female spirits who guard the family's fate. The law requires every household to offer a small sacrifice, ale, bread, or a hen, to the Dessert before winter seals the fjord. Neglect risks their wrath, believed to bring sickness or bad harvests. Picture the village women, led by Astrid, gathering at the sacred grove, pouring ale into the earth and chanting to the unseen. A young man, Skald Thorfinn, mocks the ritual, calling it old women's nonsense. The law allows the thing to fine him for blasphemy, but his mother, fearing worse, offers a hen in his name. The law speaker accepts, warning Thorfinn that the Dessert see all. The village breathes easier, the balance restored, the spirits appeased. As the Vetraliger ends, snow dusts the thing's dead, and the villagers return to their hearths. The laws, governing inheritance, duels, fostering, livestock, and spirits, hold Hrafnfell together, a delicate dance of honor and survival. The fjord lies still, its waters reflecting the first stars. The longhouse glows, its warmth a promise against the coming cold, and the laws, strange and eternal, whisper through the night. The Vetraliger, the winter assembly, has left Hrafnfell humming with the weight of its judgments, but the laws never rest. In the long house of Jarl Ragna, the fire crackles as the village prepares for the Yule, the midwinter feast that marks the sun's return. Viking law surrounds Yule with strange customs, binding the living to the gods and the dead. Every household must brew ale for the feast, a legal obligation to honor Freyr and Odin. Failure to provide ale invites a fine or, worse, the displeasure of the spirits. Picture Astrid, the weaver, stirring a cauldron of barley mash, her daughter Sigrid tossing herbs into the brew. The law requires the ale be shared freely at the Yule feast, a gesture of unity, but it also allows the Jarl to demand a portion for his haul, a tax in liquid form. Astrid grumbles as she sets aside a jug for Ragna, knowing the law binds her generosity to his power. The air fills with the sweet tang of fermenting ale, a reminder that even celebration is governed by rules as old as the fjord itself. A new dispute ripples through Hrafnfell, tied to the peculiar law of Manjafnir, a ritual comparison of men's worth. This law allows two men to settle rivalry by publicly listing their deeds, raids, crafts, or acts of bravery before the thing. The loser, deemed less worthy, may face shame or a fine. Imagine Gunnar, the arrogant warrior, challenging Leif, the quiet fisherman, after a feud over a shared boat. Gunnar boasts of his raids across the sea, his voice booming at the thing's stead. Leif, softer spoken, recounts his survival of a storm that sank 3 ships, earning nods from the elders. The law's strangeness lies in its flexibility. The law speaker may declare a tie, sparing both men's honor, or demand a token payment to settle the matter. Picture the crowd's hush as Halfdan, the law speaker, rules Leif's courage equal to Gunnar's glory, ordering them to share the boat and a round of ale at Yule. The law, though odd, turns rivalry into respect, keeping peace without blood. Another curious law governs Skaganger, the temporary outlawry we've seen before, but its details grow stranger still. A man declared Skaganger, banished to the wilds for a crime like theft, may not be killed without consequence. Picture Bjarni, the redeemed smith, now settled back in Hrafnfell. Years ago, he survived his outlawry, but a new case tests the law's nuances. A young man, Rolf, caught stealing a neighbor's axe, faces Skaganger for 1 year. The law forbids his kin from sheltering him but allows them to leave food at a hidden marker, a strange compromise between punishment and mercy. Rolf's sister, Ingrid, braves the forest's edge at dusk, leaving bread and dried fish under a rune-carved stone. If caught, she'd share his fate, yet the law winks at her act, trusting the gods to judge. Imagine Rolf, shivering in the pines, finding the food as wolves howl in the distance. The law's odd balance, exile but not death, gives him a chance to return, wiser and humbled. The treatment of seer, the ancient magic practiced by some women, falls under a law both revered and feared. Seer, divination, spell weaving, or spirit calling, is legal but tightly regulated. Only a Sycona, a trained woman, may practice it, and only with the thing's blessing. Picture Freya, the village's Sycona, a gray-haired woman with eyes like winter ice. She chants by the fire, seeking visions of the coming spring. But when a rival accuses her of cursing his crops, the thing must decide. The law allows Freya to prove her innocence by singing the seer, a ritual chant that summons truth. If her words falter, or the gods send an ill omen, she risks exile. Imagine the village holding its breath as Freya's voice rises, clear and haunting, a raven circling above as if sent by Odin. The law speaker declares her innocent, but the law demands she offer a silver ring to the accuser's household, a strange gesture to soothe wounded pride. This rule, blending magic and justice, keeps the seeress power in check, honoring the gods while guarding the village. Even the smallest creatures fall under Viking law. The muselog, or mouse law, governs pests that threaten grain stores. If a farmer's negligence lets mice ruin a neighbor's barley, he owes Wergild for the loss. Picture Thora, the farmer, facing the thing after her poorly sealed granary let mice spill into Olaf's stores. The law demands she replace the grain or pay its value in silver, but here's the oddity. If Thora proves the mice came from a shared barn, the blame splits evenly. She calls witnesses who saw mice in both granaries, and the law speaker rules both must repair their stores and share the cost of new traps. Imagine Thora and Olaf grudgingly hauling timber to seal the barns, bound by a law that makes even rodents a matter of justice. As Yule approaches, the law of Gree, truce, takes hold. During the sacred 12 days of Yule, all feuds must cease, and no man may raise a weapon against another. Violating Gree risks full outlawry, a fate worse than death. Picture Gunnar, still smarting from his Manjafner loss, glaring at Leif across the Yule feast. The law binds his hands, forcing him to pass the ale horn with a forced smile. The longhouse glows with torchlight, laughter mingling with the scent of roasted boar, and the truce holds, a fragile peace woven by law. Hrafnfell settles into Yule, its laws a quiet current beneath the revelry. From ale to outlaws, magic to mice, these strange rules bind the village to its gods, its land, and its people. The fjord lies still, its waters catching the flicker of stars, and the longhouse hums with warmth, a bulwark against the winter's dark. As Yule fades, Hrafnfell turns its gaze to the Midvinterblot, a second ritual offering to ensure the gods' favor through the darkest months. The law surrounding the blot is strict and strange. Every household must contribute, whether with grain, livestock, or crafted goods, and the offering must be made at the sacred grove under the Godi's watch. Failure to participate risks a fine or the god's wrath, believed to bring storms or barren fields. Picture Astrid, the weaver, trudging through snow to offer a finely woven shawl to Freya, her fingers numb but her heart steady. The law allows the Godi to keep a portion of the offerings for his household, a quirk that stirs grumbles among the villagers. Yet none dare defy it, for the Midvinterblot binds Hrafnfell to the divine, and the law ensures no one shirks their duty. Imagine the grove, lit by torches, the air thick with chants and the scent of burning herbs, as the village offers its gifts, the snow stained red with the blood of a sacrificed ram. A new dispute tests another odd law, this one governing Skipa, the shared ownership of ships. In Hrafnfell, longships are the lifeblood of trade and raids, and many are owned by groups of men who pool resources. The law of Skipa demands that each owner maintain his share, repairing planks, mending sails, or providing oarsmen. Picture Leif, the fisherman, who shares a ship with 3 others, including Gunnar, his rival. When a storm splits the ship's mast, Gunnar refuses to pay his share, claiming Leif's poor steering caused the damage. The thing convenes, and the law speaker, Halfdan, recites the law. All owners must contribute equally, unless one can prove another's neglect. Leif, ever calm, produces a witness, a boy who saw Gunnar ignore a loose rope that fouled the mast. The law's strange twist allows the thing to impose a skip spot, a fine that Gunnar must pay to repair the ship, plus a sheep for wasting the thing's time. Imagine Gunnar's scowl as he hands over the woolly penalty, the law forcing him to mend both ship and pride. The law of Heimold, or household rights, brings another curious case. Every free man or woman has the right to govern their home, but disputes within a household can spill into the thing. Picture Thora, the farmer, whose younger brother, Sven, lives under her roof. Sven, lazy and fond of mead, refuses to help with the harvest, claiming he's owed a share of the farm as his arfer. The law of Heimold gives Thora authority over her household, but Sven invokes a rare rule. A sibling can demand a portion of the family land if they've worked it for 3 winters. At the thing, Thora argues Sven's idleness voids his claim, and the law speaker agrees, citing a stranger clause. A household member who shirks labor forfeits their arfer unless they swear an oath of reform. Picture Sven, red-faced, gripping the sacred ring, his oath to work the fields met with skeptical murmurs. The law, blending family and justice, keeps Thora's farm intact while giving Sven a chance to prove himself. Even the stars fall under Viking law, or at least the Stjornukunata, the knowledge of navigation by the heavens. Sea voyages are vital, and the law requires every ship's captain to know the stars or face penalties for endangering the crew. Picture young Kettle, preparing for his first raid, studying the night sky under the Godi's guidance. The law allows the thing to fine a captain whose ignorance leads to a ship's loss, a rule born of too many wrecks on jagged coasts. Kettle, nervous but eager, memorizes the Vega and Deneb, knowing a single misstep could see him stripped of his share in the raid's loot. Imagine him on the longship's prow, the stars his map, the law his silent judge, as the fjord fades behind him. The law of Jengni, or guest right, takes a darker turn. During Yule, the Gree truce held firm, but now, in the Depthsarkers, the law of Jengni demands that a host protect his guest, even at the cost of his life, but it also allows the host to expel a guest who insults the household. Picture Bjarni, the redeemed smith, hosting a traveling merchant named Ivar. Ivar, drunk on Bjarni's ale, mocks his past as an outlaw, sparking a brawl. The thing hears the case, and the law's strange balance emerges. Ivar must pay a fine for his insult, but Bjarni, who struck first, owes Wergild for Ivar's bruised jaw. Imagine the 2 men, glaring across the Thingstead, each bound by law to make amends, their feud cooled by silver and oaths. The strangest law yet surfaces as the Midvinterblot ends, the Draugr, or law of the restless dead. Vikings believe the dead can walk if their graves are disturbed or their honor slighted. The law requires a ritual to appease a Draugr, lest it haunt the living. Picture Freya, the Sycona, called to a farm where strange noises echo at night. The farmer claims his father's grave, poorly tended, has stirred a Draugr. The law demands Freya perform a banfaring, a chant to bind the spirit, and the farmer must offer a goat to the grave. Imagine Freya's voice rising in the moonlight, the farmer trembling as he pours blood onto the mound, the village watching, half in awe, half in fear. The law, tying the living to the dead, ensures the Draugr sleeps, and Hrafnfell breathes easier. As winter deepens, Hrafnfell huddles around its hearths, the law's a quiet pulse beneath the snow. From blot to ships, households to stars, and spirits to guests, these strange rules weave a world where every act carries weight. The fjord lies frozen, its silence a mirror to the village's order, and the longhouse glows, a beacon against the dark. In Hrafnfell, the midwinter blot has left the village in a state of quiet reverence, the sacred grove still echoing with the chants of the Godi and the scent of offered blood. The laws surrounding such rituals linger, binding the community to the gods through strict and curious customs. One such law governs the Helgeblot, a smaller offering made by each household to protect against winter's perils, sickness, hunger, or the wrath of the landvetter, the spirits of the land. The law requires every family to place a token, a carved rune, a loaf of bread, or a sprig of evergreen, at the edge of their fields or near the fjord shore. Neglect invites misfortune, and the thing may impose a fine for failing to honor the spirits. Picture Astrid, the weaver, kneeling in the snow with her daughter Sigrid, placing a woven charm at the base of an oak, their breath clouding in the chill air. The law allows the Godi to inspect these offerings, ensuring no household shirks its duty. Astrid's charm, intricate with threads of blue and white, sways in the wind, a small act of faith upheld by law, tying Hrafnfell to the unseen forces that guard it. A new dispute ripples through the village, tied to the peculiar law of Landamiri, the marking of boundaries. Land is life in Hrafnfell, and the law demands that boundary stones, carved with runes or topped with moss, remain untouched. Picture Olaf, the young herder, accused by his neighbor Ingvar of shifting a stone to claim extra pasture for his cattle. The thing gathers, the thingstead dusted with frost, as Ingvar points to a displaced runestone, his voice sharp with anger. The law is clear. Moving a boundary stone is a grave offense, punishable by a heavy fine or even Skaganger. But here's the strange twist. Olaf claims the stone was moved by a storm, not his hand, and the law allows him to call upon the landvetter as witnesses. He must perform a landblot, a ritual offering of ale and grain at the stone, to seek the spirit's judgment. Imagine Olaf, standing alone in the dusk, pouring ale into the frozen earth, chanting to the unseen as the village watches from afar. If no ill omen, say, a raven's cry or a sudden wind, follows, his innocence is proven. The law speaker, Halfdan, declares the ritual sound, and Ingvar's claim falters, the law blending justice with the mystic in a way that feels both strange and sacred. Another odd law governs Fiskertindi, the rights to fishing waters. The fjord teems with cod and herring, and every family has a claim to its bounty, but the law sets strict boundaries on nets and traps. Picture Leif, the fisherman, in a feud with Gunnar, his old rival, over a prime fishing spot near the fjord's mouth. Gunnar's nets have tangled leaves, costing him a day's catch. The law of Fiskertindi requires each man to mark his fishing grounds with a buoy or stake, and disputes are settled at the thing. Leif accuses Gunnar of setting nets beyond his share, and the law speaker cites a curious rule. If a man's nets drift into another's waters, he owes Wergild for the lost fish, but only if the wronged party can prove intent. Leif produces a witness, a boy who saw Gunnar set his nets at dawn, ignoring the marked buoys. The thing orders Gunnar to pay a basket of fish and mend Leif's nets, a penalty that stings his pride more than his purse. Imagine the two men, glaring across the Thingstead, bound by a law that turns the fjord's wealth into a shared trust, its rules as precise as the tides. The law of Barnfoster, or child fostering, takes a new turn in Hrafnfell. Beyond alliances, Fostering can serve as a legal bond to heal old wounds. Picture Bjarni, the redeemed smith, now raising young Eric, the son of a man he once wronged. The law requires Bjarni to teach Eric a trade, ensuring his future, but it also holds a strange clause. If Eric comes to harm under Bjarni's care, the thing can demand Wergild as if he were Bjarni's own kin. Imagine Bjarni hammering iron in his forge, glancing at Eric as he learns to shape a blade, the weight of the law a constant reminder of his debt to the boy's family. When Eric cuts his hand on a poorly forged nail, Bjarni fears the thing's judgment, but the law allows him to pay a small fine, 3 silver coins, to Eric's father, avoiding a larger feud. This rule, odd yet pragmatic, turns fostering into a bridge between enemies, mending past wrongs with shared futures. Even dreams fall under Viking law, or at least their telling. The dromrit, or dream right, governs visions shared by a Sycona like Freya. The law allows her to speak of dreams that foretell village fate, storms, raids, or harvests, but only at the thing, lest her words sow panic. Picture Freya, her eyes distant, recounting a dream of a black ship sinking in the fjord. The law requires her to swear its truth on a sacred ring, and if her vision proves false, she risks a fine for misleading the village. The law speaker listens, the crowd hushed, as Freya's voice weaves a warning of coming danger. The law's strangeness lies in its balance. It honors the Sycona-esque gift but binds her to accountability, ensuring her dreams serve the community, not chaos. As winter tightens its grip, the law of Vetrovist, or winter shelter, comes to the fore. Every household must offer refuge to stranded travelers during blizzards, a rule born of survival in a land where snow can bury paths for weeks. Picture a stranger, a skald named Hakon, stumbling into Hrafnfell during a storm, his cloak crusted with ice. Astrid takes him in, bound by law to share her hearth for 3 days. But the law's quirk allows her to demand a gestigjald, a guest fee, if Hakon stays longer. When he lingers, singing tales of distant lands, Astrid invokes the law, and Hakon offers a carved bone flute as payment. Imagine the Longhouse, alive with his songs, the law weaving hospitality into obligation, warmth into exchange. Hrafnfell endures, its laws a quiet rhythm beneath the snow. From spirits to fishing, fostering to dreams, these strange codes hold the village fast, a delicate dance of honor and survival. The fjord lies silent, its ice reflecting the stars, and the Longhouse hums, a haven against the cold. In Hrafnfell, the Vetrovist law of winter shelters still holds the village in its grip, as storms rage across the fjord, stranding travelers and testing hospitality. But another law, stranger still, emerges as the village prepares for the Orbolt, a midwinter feast to honor Thor and banish the cold. The law requires every household to contribute a dish, barley bread, salted fish, or a rare slab of boar, to the communal feast, and the goatee must bless the meal to ensure Thor's favor. Failure to contribute risks a fine or, worse, the god's displeasure, believed to summon blizzards or barren springs. Picture Astrid, the weaver, kneading dough with her daughter Sigrid, their hands dusted with flour as they shape loaves for the Orbolt. The law's odd twist allows the Jarl, Ragna, to claim the finest dish for her hall, a privilege that sparks quiet resentment among the villagers. Astrid, ever pragmatic, offers a loaf woven with herbs, knowing it will please both Thor and Ragna. Imagine the feast, the Longhouse packed with laughter and song, the air thick with the scent of bread and ale, as the law binds the village in shared sacrifice, a bulwark against winter's wrath. A new dispute stirs the Thingstead, tied to the peculiar law of vapnatak, the weapon-taking. Viking law forbids carrying arms at the Thing to prevent bloodshed, but it also governs how weapons are stored and returned. Picture Gunnar, the warrior, accused by Leif, the fisherman, of taking an axe from the Thingstead's weapon pile without permission, a breach akin to theft. The law of vapnatak demands that all weapons be surrendered before the Thing and reclaimed only after. Gunnar claims he mistook the axe for his own, but the law speaker, Halfdan, recites a curious clause. A man who takes another's weapon must replace it or pay wergild equal to its value. Leif, holding the worn axe, demands a new blade, and Gunnar, his pride stung, must comply. Imagine the tension as Gunnar hands over a gleaming axe, forged by Bjarni the smith, the law forcing him to swallow his arrogance. This rule, strange to us, keeps the Thing a place of words, not blades, preserving peace in a warrior's world. The law of scrout, or adornment, brings another odd case to light. Vikings prize jewelry, rings, brooches, and amber beads, as signs of wealth and status, but the law regulates their display to prevent envy or false claims. Picture Thora, the farmer, accused by her neighbor Ingvar of wearing a silver arm ring stolen from his wife's chest. At the Thing, Thora swears the ring was a gift from her late mother, but the law demands proof, a witness or a rune-carved deed. Without either, Thora faces a fine or the loss of the ring. Here's the strange twist. The law allows her to challenge Ingvar to a Sandleiksleikur, a truth game, where both must recite their lineage and deeds while holding a sacred stone. If either falters, the gods judge them false. Imagine Thora, her voice steady, tracing her mother's line back 5 generations, while Ingvar stumbles over his grandfather's name. The law speaker rules in Thora's favor, and the ring stays hers, the law weaving honor and memory into justice. The law of Skogrætur, or forest rights, sparks a quieter dispute. The forests around Hrafnfell teem with timber and game, but the law restricts their use to prevent depletion. Picture Olaf, the herder, caught felling trees beyond his allotted share to build a new barn. His neighbor, Sven, now working Thora's fields to prove his worth, reports him to the Thing. The law of Skogrætur requires each household to mark their trees with runes, and unauthorized cutting carries a fine or labor for the village. Olaf, defiant, claims the trees were unmarked, but Sven produces a carved branch as proof. The law speaker orders Olaf to plant 10 saplings and gives Sven a basket of apples from his orchard. Imagine Olaf, grumbling as he digs in the frozen earth, the law binding him to restore what he took, a strange blend of punishment and renewal. Even the children of Hrafnfell fall under the law's peculiar gaze. The barnret, or child right, governs how young ones are raised and disciplined. Picture young Eric, fostered by Bjarni the smith, caught stealing honey from Astrid's stores. The law allows Bjarni to punish him, a light lash or extra chores, but it also requires him to teach Eric a lesson in honor. Bjarni, mindful of his own past, chooses a stranger path. The barnret permits a public apology at the Thing to restore the child's standing. Imagine Eric, red-faced and trembling, standing before the village, his small voice promising to make amends by helping Astrid weave a new basket. The law, gentle yet firm, turns a child's mistake into a step toward manhood, weaving him back into the community's trust. The strangest law yet emerges as whispers of a Nornir prophecy spread. The Nornir, the fates who weave destiny, are said to speak through dreams or omens, and the law of Nornlogmal governs their interpretation. Only a Psychona like Freya may share such prophecies, and only with the Thing's approval. Picture Freya, summoned to the Thingstead after dreaming of a red wolf circling Hrafnfell, a sign of coming strife. The law requires her to prove the dream's truth by casting runes under the Goatee's watch. If the runes align, her warning is heeded. If not, she risks a fine for stirring fear. Imagine Freya, her hands steady as she scatters the carved stones, their patterns spelling danger. The law speaker calls for extra watchmen on the fjord, and the village braces, the law tying prophecy to action, the mystic to the mundane. As Hrafnfell settles into the deepest winter, its laws remain a quiet pulse, guiding feasts, disputes, and dreams. From Orebolt to forest rites, weapons to prophecies, these strange codes hold the village fast, a delicate dance of survival and spirit. The fjord lies silent, its ice a mirror for the stars, and the longhouse hums, its warmth a shield against the dark. The Orebolt has left Hrafnfell sated, the longhouse still echoing with the laughter and songs of the feast, but the village cannot rest. Winter's grip tightens, and the laws of the Vikings, ever watchful, govern even the smallest acts. One such law, the Eldred, or fire right, governs the hearth that sustains every household. Fire is life in the frozen north, and the law requires each family to maintain their hearth and share embers with neighbors in need. Failure to do so risks a fine or the shame of leaving kin to freeze. Picture Astrid, the weaver, tending her hearth with care, her daughter Sigrid stacking logs to keep the flames alive. When a storm extinguishes a neighbor's fire, Astrid sends Sigrid with a glowing ember, wrapped in moss, to rekindle their hearth. But the law's strange twist allows the neighbor, Thora, to owe Astrid a Eljoff, a gift of wood or fish, for the ember. Imagine Thora, grudgingly delivering a basket of dried cod, the law weaving generosity into obligation, ensuring no hearth goes cold. A new dispute stirs the Thingstead, tied to the peculiar law of Sokn, or legal pursuit. This law allows any free man or woman to bring a grievance to the Thing, but it demands they announce their intent publicly, giving the accused a chance to prepare. Picture Leif, the fisherman, accusing Gunnar, his rival, of spreading false rumors that Leif's fish are cursed, driving traders away. The law of Sokn requires Leif to proclaim his grievance at the village crossroads, naming Gunnar before witnesses. At the Thing, Gunnar denies the charge, but the law's odd clause demands he prove his innocence by gathering 3 oath helpers to swear his truth. Imagine Gunnar, his pride stinging, coaxing kin to stand with him, their voices unsteady as they grip the sacred ring. The law speaker, Halfdan, rules that Gunnar's denial holds, but he must gift Leif a net as bought compensation for the lost trade. The law, strange yet precise, turns words into currency, restoring balance without blood. The law of Husdr, or household animals, brings another curious case. Livestock are wealth, and their care is strictly regulated. Picture Olaf, the herder, accused by Ingvar of letting his goats stray into Ingvar's barley field, trampling the young shoots. The law of Husdr demands that animals be tethered or fenced, and straying beasts cost their owner were killed. Olaf claims his goats were led astray by a broken gate, blaming Ingvar's shoddy fence. The thing invokes a strange rule. If both parties share blame, they must split the cost of repair and compensation. Imagine Olaf and Ingvar grumbling as they hammer new posts together, each paying half a silver coin for the lost barley. The law, blending fault and fairness, ensures the fields endure, binding neighbors in uneasy truce. The law of skaldskap, or the art of poetry, takes a surprising turn. Skalds like Hakon, the traveling poet, are revered, but their words carry legal weight. A mocking verse can spark a case at the thing, and the law allows the insulted to demand bot or a public retraction. Picture Hakon, still lingering in Hrafnfell, reciting a poem that calls Bjarni, the smith, hammer-weak for a bent sword. Bjarni, his temper flaring, hauls Hakon before the thing, citing the skaldskap law. The law speaker offers Hakon a choice: compose a new verse praising Bjarni or pay a fine. Imagine Hakon, his tongue now tamed, chanting of Bjarni's iron heart before the village, the law turning poetry into a tool of peace. This rule, odd to us, guards honor as fiercely as land, weaving words into the fabric of justice. The law of Vatevanger, or sacred places, governs the grove where the Midvinterblot was held. These sites, marked by stones or trees, are protected, and any desecration risks divine wrath. Picture young Eric, fostered by Bjarni, caught carving his name into a sacred oak during a dare. The goatee summons him to the thing, citing the Vatevanger law, which demands a ritual cleansing or exile for defiling a holy site. The law's strange mercy allows Eric, as a child, to atone by helping Freya, the Sycona, plant a new sapling and offer a hen to the Landvetter. Imagine Eric, trembling as he digs in the frozen earth, Freya's chants rising like mist, the village watching as the grove is restored. The law, tying youth to the sacred, teaches respect through labor, sparing Eric harsher punishment. The strangest law yet emerges as whispers of a troll stir fear. The Trollret, or Troll Law, governs tales of supernatural beings blamed for misfortune, lost livestock, spoiled milk, or sudden illness. The law allows the thing to investigate such claims, but only a Sycona like Freya can confirm a troll's presence. Picture a farmer, Sven, claiming a troll stole his best cow, demanding the village fund a ritual to banish it. The law requires Freya to perform a trollskra, a chant to reveal the truth. If no troll is found, Sven faces a fine for false claims. Imagine Freya, her runes cast in the snow, declaring the cow simply strayed, not stolen by spirits. Sven, chastened, pays a silver coin, and the law, blending myth and reason, keeps fear from fracturing the village. As Hrafnfell endures the winter's depths, its laws remain a steady pulse, guiding hearths, disputes, and sacred groves. From fire to poetry, goats to trolls, these strange codes weave a world where every act carries weight. The fjord lies still, its ice reflecting the stars, and the longhouse glows, a haven against the cold. The Orbold has left Hrafnfell warm with fellowship, but the village now turns to the Vettering, a special winter thing held to settle urgent matters before the snows deepen. The Thingstead, a snow-dusted clearing ringed by rune-carved stones, hums with the murmurs of the gathered freemen and women. The law speaker, Halfdan, his white beard frosted by his breath, stands ready to recite the ancient codes, his voice a steady anchor in the cold. The laws tested today are among the strangest, blending the mundane with the mystic, the practical with the divine. One peculiar law governs skuldebref, or debt bonds, which bind men and women to repay loans in silver, livestock, or labor. Picture Leif, the fisherman, who borrowed 3 silver coins from Gunnar, his rival, to repair his storm-damaged boat. Now, with the fishing season slowed by ice, Leif struggles to repay. The law of skuldebref allows Gunnar to demand repayment at the thing, but it holds a curious twist. If Leif can't pay in silver, he can offer labor or goods, but only if the thing deems them equal in value. Gunnar, ever proud, demands a new sail for his own ship, but Leif counters with a basket of dried cod and a promise to mend Gunnar's nets. The law speaker rules that Leif's offer suffices, but Gunnar, stung by the compromise, must accept or face a fine for greed. Imagine Leif hauling fish to Gunnar's longhouse, the law turning debt into a grudging truce, its strange balance keeping peace in a world of scarcity. Another odd law, the Brennuret, governs controlled burns to clear land for planting. Fire is both tool and danger, and the law demands that any burn be announced to neighbors to prevent wildfires. Picture Thora, the farmer, accused by her brother Sven of burning a patch of scrub too close to his fields, singeing his barley. At the thing, Thora insists she warned Sven, but he denies it. The law's strange clause allows Sven to demand Wergild, a basket of grain or a sheep, unless Thora can prove her warning with a witness. When Astrid steps forward, recalling Thora's shout across the fields, the law speaker halves the penalty, ordering Thora to give Sven a single lamb. Imagine the siblings, their bond strained but intact, sharing the work of shearing the lamb, the law weaving fairness into their feud, ensuring the land endures. The law of Fuglerit, or bird right, brings a lighter dispute. Seabirds nest along Hrafnfell's cliffs, their eggs a vital food source, but the law restricts their harvest to prevent depletion. Picture young Eric, fostered by Bjarni the Smith, caught taking eggs beyond his household share. The Godi summons him to the thing, citing the Fuglerit, which demands that egg-gathering be divided equally among families. Eric, shamefaced, admits his greed, tempted by the thought of extra food. The law's odd mercy allows him to atone by giving half his eggs to the village's poorest family and helping repair their nets. Imagine Eric, scrambling down the icy cliffs to deliver the eggs, his breath puffing in the cold, the law teaching him stewardship through labor. This rule, strange yet practical, guards the fjord's bounty for all, tying youth to community. The law of songer or songwrite governs the music that fills Hrafnfell's longhouses. Songs are sacred, believed to carry the favor of the gods, but a false or mocking song can spark legal trouble. Picture Hakon, the skald, whose sharp tongue lands him in the thing again. He sang a verse calling Olaf, the herder, goat slow for his late arrival at the Orbolt. Olaf, his pride wounded, demands bought under the Songer law, which allows compensation for slanderous songs. The law speaker offers Hakon a choice: compose a praise song for Olaf or pay a silver coin. Imagine Hakon, his voice rich but reluctant, singing of Olaf's steady hand, with goats, the longhouse stifling laughter as the law restores Olaf's honor. This rule, odd to us, treats words as weapons, their power bound by justice. The strangest law yet surfaces as whispers of a Vatre, a land spirit, stir unease. The Veatred, or spirit law, governs offerings to the Landvetter believed to guard Hrafnfell's fields and fjord. When crops fail or fish vanish, the law allows the thing to demand a ritual to appease these spirits. Picture Freya, the Cycona, called to the Thingstead after Ingvar blames a Vater for his barren nets. The law requires Freya to perform a Vaterblot, scattering herbs and chanting under the sacred oak. If the ritual fails to restore the fish, Ingvar can demand a communal offering from the village. Imagine Freya, her voice rising in the wind, runes glowing in the firelight, as the village watches, half in awe, half in fear. When fish return to Ingvar's nets, the law speaker declares the Vatre appeased, and the law, blending faith and pragmatism, keeps hope alive in the frozen dark. Even the stars guide Hrafnfell's laws, through the Stjornalog or Star Law, which governs navigation for raids and trade. A captain who misreads the stars risks his crew's lives, and the law holds him accountable. Picture young Kettle, now on his first raid, trembling as he tracks the North Star from the longship's prow. The law allows the thing to fine a captain for a failed voyage, but it also permits him to train under a master navigator to avoid punishment. Kettle, guided by the Godi star charts, learns to read the heavens, the law binding his ambition to skill, the sea to the sky. As Hrafnfell endures the winter's heart, its laws remain a quiet pulse, guiding debts, fires, songs, and spirits. From eggs to stars, these strange codes weave a world where every act carries weight. The fjord lies frozen, its ice a silent witness, and the longhouse glows, a beacon against the cold. The Vettering has left Hrafnfell settled, its disputes resolved under the watchful eye of the law speaker, Halfdan, but the laws never sleep. As the village braces for the Dissablot, a sacred offering to the Dessert, the female spirits guarding family and fate, the laws surrounding this ritual come to the fore. The Dissablot law demands that every household offer a gift, ale, bread, or a small animal, to honor the Dessert, ensuring their protection through winter's end. Failure risks their wrath, believed to bring sickness or broken bonds. Picture Astrid, the weaver, and her daughter Sigrid, pouring ale into a shallow bowl at the edge of their field, their voices soft as they chant to the spirits. The law's strange twist allows the Godi to collect a portion of the offerings for the village's poor, a gesture that binds charity to devotion. But when Thora, the farmer, forgets her offering, claiming exhaustion, the thing finds her a hen, to be sacrificed at the sacred grove. Imagine Thora, her face flushed, leading the clucking bird to the altar, the law weaving her lapse into a communal act of atonement, the Dessert appeased under the snow-dusted pines. A new dispute stirs the Thingstead, tied to the peculiar law of Grin, or truce-breaking. The Gree, the sacred truce of Yule, extends to all major feasts, and violating it carries a heavy penalty. Picture Gunnar, the warrior, accused by Leif, the fisherman, of striking him during a horrible brawl over a spilled horn of ale. The law of Grin demands that a truce-breaker pay Wergild or face Skaganger, temporary exile to the wilds. Gunnar, defiant, claims Leif provoked him with an insult, but the law's odd clause requires witnesses to confirm the slight. When none step forward, the law speaker orders Gunnar to pay Leif a silver coin, and mend his torn cloak. Imagine Gunnar, his pride bruised, stitching the cloth by firelight, the law forcing him to repair both honor and fabric, keeping the feast's peace intact. The law of Kinret or Kinright brings another curious case. Kinship is the backbone of Viking society, and the law protects family bonds while settling their disputes. Picture Bjarni, the smith, facing a claim from his cousin, Rolf, who demands a share of Bjarni's forge as part of their shared arfer. The law of Kinret allows cousins to claim inheritance if they've worked the family trade, but Bjarni argues Rolf abandoned the forge years ago. The thing invokes a strange rule. Rolf must prove his skill by forging a blade under the law speaker's watch. Imagine Rolf, his hands unsteady, hammering iron as sparks fly, the blade warping under his novice touch. The law speaker rules against him, granting Bjarni sole claim to the forge, but the law's mercy allows Rolf to work as Bjarni's apprentice to earn a future share. The law, blending family and fairness, keeps the forge's fire burning, binding kin through labor. The law of Vert, or hunting right, governs the forests and cliffs beyond Hrafnfell. Game, deer, hares, and seabirds is vital, but overhunting risks famine. Picture Olaf, the herder, accused by Ingvar of taking 2 deer beyond his share, leaving the forest sparse. The Vert law assigns each household a quota, marked by runes on a communal tally stone. Olaf claims he hunted only 1 deer, but Ingvar produces the tally, its runes showing Olaf's success. The law's odd twist allows Olaf to atone by sharing his next hunt with the village's elders. Imagine Olaf, trudging through snow with a hare slung over his shoulder, delivering it to the Godey's longhouse, the law teaching restraint through generosity, ensuring the forest's bounty endures. Even the wind falls under Viking law through the Vindrit, or Windright, which governs sails and storms. A ship caught in a gale can claim aid from any nearby vessel, and refusal risks a fine. Picture young Kettle, on his first raid, his longship battered by a sudden squall. Another ship, led by Sven, now reformed and sailing as a crewman, passes nearby but hesitates to help, fearing his own cargo's loss. The Vindrit law demands Sven turn back, and when he doesn't, Kettle's crew reports him to the Thing. The law speaker finds Sven a barrel of mead, but the law's strange mercy allows him to reduce the penalty by aiding Kettle's next voyage. Imagine Sven, grumbling as he rows beside Kettle, the law-binding sailors to the sea's shared dangers. The strangest law yet emerges as whispers of a Jotun, a giant from myth, stir fear. The Jotunlagmál, or giant law, governs tales of supernatural beings blamed for disasters, like a barn fire or a lost ship. The law allows the Thing to investigate, but only a Sycona like Freya can confirm a Jotun's presence. Picture a farmer, Ingvar, claiming a Jotun sparked a fire that burned his hay. Freya performs a Jotunskra, casting runes and chanting to seek the truth. When the runes reveal a dropped torch, not a giant, Ingvar faces a fine for false claims. Imagine Freya, her voice steady in the firelight, calming the village's fears, the law weaving reason into myth, grounding Hrafnfell in truth. As winter's heart beats on, Hrafnfell endures, its laws a quiet pulse guiding feasts, feuds, and forests. From desert to giants, these strange codes weave a world where every act carries weight. The fjord lies frozen, its ice a silent witness, and the longhouse glows, a haven against the dark. The Disselblot has left Hrafnfell in a state of quiet reverence, the offerings to the dessert ensuring their protection through the waning winter. But the laws of the Vikings never rest, and as the village prepares for the Varsblot, the spring offering to welcome the thaw, a new set of rules comes to light. The law of Varsblot demands that every household contribute a seed or sprout to plant in the sacred grove, a gesture to Freya for fertile fields. Failure risks a fine or the gods' disfavor, believed to bring blight or barren soil. Picture Astrid, the weaver, and her daughter Sigrid pressing barley seeds into the frozen earth near the grove's sacred oak, their hands chilled but hopeful. The law's strange twist allows the Godi to distribute surplus seeds to the village's poorest, weaving charity into ritual. When Olaf, the herder, offers only a handful of moldy grain, the thing finds him a basket of apples, to be shared at the Varsblot feast. Imagine Olaf, trudging through snow to deliver the fruit, the law binding his mistake to the village's renewal, the grove a promise of spring under winter's weight. A new dispute stirs the Thingstead, tied to the peculiar law of Soleret, or sunright, which governs the use of sunlight for drying fish and crops. In Hrafnfell, where winter's light is scarce, the law ensures every household has access to sunny slopes. Picture Leif, the fisherman, accusing Gunnar, his rival, of blocking his drying racks with a new barn, casting shade over Leif's cod. The law of Soleret demands that sunlight be shared, and obstructing it carries a fine or labor. Gunnar claims his barn's placement was accidental, but the thing invokes a strange clause. He must prove his intent by moving the barn or paying Wergild equal to the lost fish. Leif produces a witness, a boy who saw Gunnar survey the slope before building. The law speaker, Halfdan, orders Gunnar to shift the barn's wall by spring or give Leif a net full of herring. Imagine Gunnar, hammering boards in the cold, his pride stinging, the law weaving fairness into the fleeting sun, ensuring the fjord's bounty dries for all. The law of Barnskilda, or child duty, brings another curious case. Children in Hrafnfell are expected to contribute to their household, but the law protects them from overwork. Picture young Eric, fostered by Bjarni the smith, accused by his foster father of shirking forge duties to play by the fjord. The Barnskilda law allows Bjarni to discipline Eric, extra chores or a light scolding, but it also permits Eric to appeal to the thing if the work is too harsh. Eric, bold for his age, claims Bjarni's tasks keep him from learning runes, a right granted to all children. The law speaker rules that Bjarni must balance Eric's forge work with time for study, citing a strange twist. A child's mind is as vital as their hands. Imagine Eric, tracing runes by firelight, Bjarni watching with grudging respect, the law weaving youth into the village's future, a delicate balance of labor and learning. The law of Skoggerblot, or forest offering, governs the woods beyond Hrafnfell, where timber and game sustain the village. The law requires a yearly offering, ale, bread, or a carved token, to the landvetter of the forest, ensuring their favor. Picture Thora, the farmer, accused by Ingvar of neglecting the Skoggerblot, blaming her for a scarce hunt. The law demands proof of the offering, and Thora produces a carved pine effigy she left at the forest's edge. But the thing uncovers a stranger rule. If the offering is deemed insufficient, the offender must plant new trees. Ingvar claims Thora's effigy was too small, and the law speaker orders her to plant 5 saplings. Imagine Thora, digging in the frozen earth, her breath clouding as Ingvar watches, the law tying her to the forest's renewal, a quiet act of balance under the landvetter's gaze. The law of Sögflutningur, or tale-telling, governs the stories shared by skalds like Hakon. A tale that slanders a man's honor can spark a case at the thing. Picture Hakon, reciting a story of a cowardly fisherman who fled a storm, clearly aimed at Leif. Leif, his temper flaring, demands bought under the Sögflutningur law, which allows compensation or a public retraction. The law speaker offers Hakon a choice: weave a new tale praising Leif or pay a silver coin. Imagine Hakon, his voice rich but strained, singing of Leif's storm-defying nets before the longhouse, the law turning stories into tools of peace, guarding honor as fiercely as land. The strangest law yet emerges as whispers of a dromviet, a dream spirit, stir unease. The dromvetertrit, or dream spirit law, governs visions blamed for misfortune, like illness or lost livestock. The law allows the thing to investigate, but only a Psychona like Freya can confirm the spirit's presence. Picture Sven, now a diligent farmer, claiming a dromveter caused his cow's milk to sour. Freya performs a dromskra, casting runes and chanting by the hearth. When the runes reveal a tainted bucket, not a spirit, Sven faces a fine for false claims. Imagine Freya, her eyes sharp, guiding Sven to clean his barn, the law weaving reason into myth, calming fears with truth. As Hrafnfell nears spring, its laws remain a steady pulse, guiding offerings, disputes, and dreams. From sunlight to stories, forests to spirits, these strange codes weave a world where every act carries weight. The fjord's ice begins to crack, a whisper of thaw, and the longhouse glows, a beacon against the fading dark. The Varsblot preparations fill Hrafnfell with purpose, the village bustling as families ready their offerings for Freya, goddess of fertility. The law of Varsblot demands that each household plant a seed or sprout in the sacred grove, but it also requires a communal feast to share the last of winter's stores. Neglecting either risks a fine or the goddess's disfavor, believed to curse crops or calving. Picture Astrid, the weaver, and her daughter Sigrid, kneading dough for the feast, their hands dusted with barley flour as they shape loaves shaped like budding leaves. The law's strange twist allows the Godi to bless the feast only if every household contributes, ensuring unity. When Ingvar, the fisherman, offers only a handful of wilted herbs, claiming a poor catch, the thing finds him a basket of fish to be shared at the feast. Imagine Ingvar, hauling his catch to the longhouse, his grumbling softened by the scent of roasting bread, the law weaving his laps into the village's renewal, a promise of spring under Freya's gaze. A new dispute stirs the Thingstead, tied to the peculiar law of Vatnret, or water right, which governs the fjord streams and springs vital for drinking and irrigation. Picture Thora, the farmer, accused by her brother Sven of diverting a stream to water her fields, leaving his barley parched. The law of Vatnret demands that water be shared equally, and tampering with a stream carries a fine or a labor. Thora claims the stream shifted naturally, but the thing invokes a strange clause. She must prove her innocence by leading the law speaker to the stream's source. If altered, she owes Wergild. Picture Thora, trudging through melting snow with Halfdan, pointing to a fallen log that redirected the flow. The law speaker rules the act natural but orders Thora to clear the log with Sven, splitting the labor. Imagine the siblings, working side by side, their bond strained but mending, the law weaving fairness into the fjord's lifeblood, ensuring water flows for all. The law of handwerk or craftwright brings another curious case. Craftsmen like Bjarni, the smith, are valued, but their work falls under strict rules to prevent fraud. Picture Bjarni, accused by Olaf, the herder, of forging a weak plow that broke during planting. The law of handwork demands that craftsmen guarantee their work, and a faulty tool requires replacement or bought. Bjarni insists the plow is sound, blaming Olaf's misuse. The thing invokes a strange test. Bjarni must forge a new plow under the goatee's watch, proving his skill. Imagine Bjarni, his hammer ringing in the forge, crafting a blade that gleams in the firelight, while Olaf watches, grudgingly impressed. The law speaker rules the new plow sufficient, but Bjarni must gift Olaf a knife, as bought for the inconvenience. The law, blending skill and accountability, keeps the village's tools sharp, binding craftsmen to their craft. The law of Fuglavist, or bird sanctuary, governs the cliffs where seabirds nest, their eggs and feathers a springtime boon. Overharvesting risks depletion, so the law sets strict quotas. Picture young Eric, fostered by Bjarni, caught trading extra eggs to a passing merchant for a carved comb. The Fuglavist law allows the thing to fine him or demand labor to protect the nests. Eric, shamefaced, admits his greed, and the law speaker orders him to build a stone barrier to shield the cliffs, guided by Freya, the Sycona. Imagine Eric, stacking rocks under Freya's watchful eye, her chants blessing the nests, the law teaching him stewardship through toil. This rule, strange yet vital, guards the fjord's bounty, tying youth to the land's renewal. The law of Sagnrit or Sagarite governs the tales told by skalds like Hakon. A saga that glorifies a family's deeds can boost their honor, but a false tale risks legal trouble. Picture Hakon, reciting a saga claiming Leif's ancestor was a coward who fled a raid. Leif, furious, demands bought under the Sagnrit law, which allows compensation or a corrective tale. The law speaker offers Hakon a choice: weave a new saga praising Leif's line or pay a silver coin. Imagine Hakon, his voice rich but reluctant, singing of Leif's storm-taming blood before the Longhouse, the law turning tales into tools of justice, guarding honor as fiercely as swords. The strangest law yet emerges as whispers of a huldafolk, hidden folk, stir unease. The huldafokrit, or hidden folk law, governs tales of these unseen beings blamed for lost tools or soured milk. The law allows the thing to investigate, but only a Sycona like Freya can confirm their presence. Picture Gunnar, claiming a huldafolk stole his best axe, demanding a village ritual to banish them. Freya performs a huldafolkskra, scattering herbs and chanting by the fjord. When she finds the axe under Gunnar's own bench, he faces a fine for false claims. Imagine Freya, her eyes sharp, guiding Gunnar to humility, the law weaving reason into myth, calming fears with truth. As Hrafnfell greets spring's first thaw, Its laws remain a steady pulse, guiding offerings, disputes, and tales. From water to sagas, birds to hidden folk, these strange codes weave a world where every act carries weight. The fjord's ice splinters, a song of renewal, and the longhouse glows, a beacon in the dawning light. The Varsblot has filled Hrafnfell with hope, the sacred grove vibrant with the offerings of seeds and sprouts, the longhouse alive with the feast's warmth and laughter. The law of Varsblot demands that every household plant for Freya and share food to honor the thaw, but it also requires a communal oath to protect the fields through summer. Neglecting this risks a fine or the goddess's disfavor, believed to blight crops or weaken livestock. Picture Astrid, the weaver, standing with her daughter Sigrid before the grove's oak, swearing to tend their barley with care, their voices mingling with the village's chant. The law's strange twist allows the Godi to assign a portion of the feast's leftovers to the village's poorest, weaving charity into devotion. When Olaf, the herder, stumbles on his oath, distracted by a lost sheep, the thing finds him a woolen blanket to be given to a widow. Imagine Olaf, his face flushed, delivering the blanket under the Godi's watchful eye, the law binding his lapse to the village's renewal, a promise of spring under Freya's grace. A new dispute stirs the Thingstead, tied to the peculiar law of Logvogr or Pathright, which governs the trails connecting Hrafnfell's farms and fishing grounds. These paths are vital, and the law demands they remain clear for all. Picture Leif, the fisherman, accusing Gunnar, his rival, of blocking a trail with a new fence, forcing Leif to wade through mud to reach his nets. The law of Logvogr requires paths to stay open, and obstructing one carries a fine or labor. Gunnar claims the fence protects his lambs, but the thing invokes a strange clause. He must prove necessity by showing harm to his flock without it. When Gunnar fails to produce evidence, the law speaker, Halfdan, orders him to remove the fence and clear the path with Leif. Imagine the two men, grudgingly hauling posts under the spring sun, their rivalry tempered by the law's demand for shared access, ensuring the village's paths remain open like veins of life. The law of Vignoret or Laborite brings another curious case. Every freeman and woman must contribute to communal tasks, mending docks, clearing fields, or rebuilding after storms, but the law protects against exploitation. Picture Bjarni, the smith, accused by Thora, the farmer, of shirking his duty to repair the village's fishing weir, claiming his forge work takes precedence. The law of Vignoret allows exemptions for skilled craftsmen, but only if they provide a substitute, goods, or another worker. Bjarni offers a new net, forged hooks gleaming, but Thora demands labor, citing the weir's urgency. The thing invokes a strange test. Bjarni must prove his forge's necessity by crafting a tool for the weir under the Godi's watch. Imagine Bjarni, his hammer ringing, shaping a spike as Thora watches, her scowl softening. The law speaker accepts the spike, but orders Bjarni to help set it, the law weaving his skill into the village's needs, binding craft to community. The law of Fuglvir, or bird hunting, governs the springtime hunt for seabirds, whose feathers and meat sustain Hrafnfell. Overhunting risks scarcity, so the law sets strict limits. Picture young Eric, fostered by Bjarni, caught selling extra gull feathers to a merchant for a silver bead. The Fuglvir law demands that hunters share excess with the village, and violations carry a fine or labor. Eric, shamefaced, admits his greed, and the law speaker orders him to mend nets for the poorest fishers, guided by Freya, the Sycona. Imagine Eric, threading twine under Freya's sharp gaze, her chants blessing the nets, the law teaching him stewardship through toil. This rule, strange yet vital, guards the cliff's bounty, tying youth to the fjord's renewal. The law of songrum, or song voice, governs the chants sung at rituals like the Varsblot. A false or mocking chant risks offending the gods, and the law allows the thing to demand amends. Picture Hakon, the skald, accused by Ingvar of singing an off-key hymn during the Varsblot, claiming it soured his crops. The Songrum law requires Hakon to prove his intent by singing again before the Godi. Imagine Hakon, his voice clear but nervous, chanting to Freya as the village listens, the hymn flawless this time. The law speaker clears him but orders a new song for Ingvar's fields as bought. The law, odd to us, treats song as sacred, weaving harmony into justice. The strangest law yet emerges as whispers of a Niflvetr, a mist spirit, stir fear. The Niflvetretret, or mist spirit law, governs tales of these beings blamed for lost travelers or spoiled catches. The law allows the thing to investigate, but only a Psychona like Freya can confirm their presence. Picture Sven claiming a Niflvetr led his boat astray, costing him a day's fish. Freya performs a Niflvetrskra, scattering ash and chanting by the fjord. When she finds Sven's rudder was loose, he faces a fine for false claims. Imagine Freya, her eyes sharp, guiding Sven to repair his boat, the law weaving reason into myth, calming fears with truth. As Hrafnfell embraces spring, its laws remain a steady pulse, guiding offerings, paths, and chants. From labor to mist spirits, these strange codes weave a world where every act carries weight. The fjord's ice melts, a song of rebirth, and the longhouse glows, a beacon in the warming light. The Varsblot has left Hrafnfell renewed, the sacred grove vibrant with planted seeds and the longhouse warm with the echoes of the feast. The law of Varsblot ensured every household honored Freya, but now, as fields are sown, the law of Åkerblot, or field offering, comes to the fore. This law demands that each farmer offer a token, grain, blood, or a carved rune to the land before planting, ensuring fertile harvests. Neglect risks a fine or the gods' disfavor, believed to curse crops with blight. Picture Astrid, the weaver, and her daughter Sigrid, scattering barley grains at their field's edge, their voices soft as they chant to Freya. The law's strange twist allows the Godi to collect surplus offerings for the village's needy, weaving charity into ritual. When Thora, the farmer, offers only a cracked runestone, claiming a poor yield, the thing finds her a basket of turnips to share with the widow's household. Imagine Thora, her face stern, delivering the turnips under the Godi's gaze, the law binding her oversight to the village's growth, a promise of summer under the warming sun. A new dispute stirs the thing's stead, tied to the peculiar law of Batteret, or boat right, which governs the longships and skiffs vital to Hrafnfell's trade and fishing. The law demands that boats be shared for communal tasks, like spring herring runs, but owners must maintain them. Picture Leif, the fisherman, accusing Gunnar, his rival, of neglecting their shared skiff, letting its hull rot, and costing Leif a week's catch. The law of Batteret requires owners to repair shared boats, and neglect carries a fine or labor. Gunnar claims the rot was hidden, but the thing invokes a strange clause. He must prove his care by patching the hull under the law speaker's watch. Imagine Gunnar grudgingly caulking the skiff's planks as Leif watches, the law speaker Habden nodding approval. The thing orders Gunnar to replace Leif's lost fish with a net of cod, the law weaving fairness into the fjord's bounty, ensuring boats sail for all. The law of barnlair or child learning brings another curious case. Children in Hrafnfell must learn skills, farming, fishing, or runes, to prepare for adulthood, and the law protects their right to education. Picture young Eric, fostered by Bjarni the smith, accused by his foster father of neglecting forge lessons to fish with friends. The Barnlair law allows Bjarni to assign extra tasks but permits Eric to appeal if the work hinders his learning. Eric, bold, claims at the thing that Bjarni's chores block his rune studies with Freya, the Psychona. The law speaker invokes a strange test. Eric must carve a rune under Freya's guidance to prove his commitment. Imagine Eric, his knife steady, etching a rune for strength as Freya watches, her nod confirming his skill. The thing orders Bjarni to balance Eric's forge work with rune lessons, the law weaving youth into the village's future, a delicate balance of labor and wisdom. The law of Skogarvist, or forest sanctuary, governs the woods where Hrafnfell hunts and gathers timber. Overuse risks scarcity, so the law sets quotas and rituals. Picture Olaf, the herder, accused by Ingvar of cutting too many saplings for a new fence, thinning the forest. The Skogarvist law demands that cutters plant new trees, and violations carry a fine or labor. Olaf claims he took only dead wood, but Ingvar produces a fresh stump as proof. The thing orders Olaf to plant 10 saplings and carve a rune for the land vetter to appease the forest spirits. Imagine Olaf, digging in the soft earth, his hands stained with sap, the law tying his mistake to renewal, ensuring the woods endure. The law of Somruin, or Somrune, governs chants etched with runes for rituals or blessings. A false rune risks angering the gods, and the law allows the thing to demand amends. Picture Hakon, the skald, accused by Sven of carving a flawed rune during a field blessing, claiming it stunted his barley. The Somruin law requires Hakon to prove his skill by carving a new rune under the goatee's watch. Imagine Hakon, his chisel steady, etching a rune for growth as Sven glares, the goatee's approval clearing him. The law speaker orders Hakon to chant over Sven's fields as bot, the law weaving song and rune into justice, guarding the land's fertility. The strangest law yet emerges as whispers of a Stjovert, a sea spirit, stir fear. The Stjovetretred, or sea spirit law, governs tales of these beings blamed for lost nets or sunken boats. The law allows the thing to investigate, but only a Psychona like Freya can confirm their presence. Picture Gunnar, claiming a Stjovetr tore his nets, demanding a village ritual to banish it. Freya performs a Stjovetriskra, scattering shells and chanting by the fjord. When she finds the nets caught on rocks, Gunnar faces a fine for false claims. Imagine Freya, her voice calm, guiding Gunnar to mend his nets, the law weaving reason into myth, calming fears with truth. As Hrafnfell embraces summer's approach, its laws remain a steady pulse, guiding fields, boats, and chants. From runes to sea spirits, these strange codes weave a world where every act carries weight. The fjord flows freely, a song of rebirth, and the longhouse glows, a beacon in the warming light.